The artist, draw me a picture. A story by Eby's heart. Leave me alone, Obinna continued shouting while running from an unseen person. His mother was wailing beside him while calling people to help. They held him down and tied his hands and legs with rope to stop him from harming himself, because they had seen several injuries on his body, especially his neck. Immediately they tied him up, the invisible figure came closer to him. He was the only one who could see it. It stretched its hands and held his neck, squeezing it. Everyone could see and hear the invisible thing grunting. They quickly untied him and started pulling him away from whatever that was trying to snuff life out of him. That was when they all believed Obinna was actually seeing something, because it was as if they were dragging him with something so strong. But what could that be? So, a few weeks ago, Obinna called his late father's only brother, Uncle Peter, who was very wealthy. He has never cared, helped, nor reached out to Obinna and her siblings since their father's death, years ago. Obinna's mother warned Obinna and his siblings never to contact Uncle Peter because it was rumored that he killed his 5 siblings and his 2 previous wives to get to the level he was. But Obinna, after graduating from the university, felt it was only a rumor. How can I have an uncle that is as wealthy as Uncle Peter and be jobless? Uncle Peter was very happy that Obinna called him, and he promised to help. 7 days later, he told Obinna to meet him at one beautiful restaurant. I heard you are now a professional artist, and can draw anything. Uncle Peter began talking once he saw Obinna. Yes, uncle, but anyway I have a job for you. Uncle Peter cut him short at once. A friend of mine needs a professional artist that can draw something for him, Uncle Peter said nonchalantly. Obinna frowned because that was not what he was expecting to hear. He will pay 10 million, Uncle Peter added. Immediately he noticed that Obinna was frowning. 10 what? I am interested, Obinna asked, jumping happily. How many painting will it be? Obinna asked, expecting him to say 100, but Uncle Peter turned and said, just 1. Obinna wanted to ask more questions, but Uncle Peter quickly added, I thought you needed a job. Well, this is it. Obinna's doubts were cleared. What is the worst that can happen, he thought, smiling. Be ready by 10 p.m. tomorrow evening, a car will come to pick you up, Uncle Peter said, and walked to his car and zoomed off. When Obinna got there the next day, he was asked to leave his own painting materials that he had come with outside the compound. He did so excitedly without a second thought. They took him to a very strange room and brought out working materials for him and said, the image you will draw will be here soon. The image? Obinna thought, surprised. After a few minutes, the light in the room came on and Obinna saw the scariest painting he had ever seen. A woman sitting on a chair without a head. Obinna screamed and wanted to run out, but Uncle Peter's wealthy friend whispered in Obinna's ear, 20 million, I can even give you more, just give me the painting and walk away. Obinna had so many questions to ask, like, why is the painting without a head? But he changed his mind upon hearing 20 million. He quickly sat down and started painting. Immediately he finished, he got an alert of 20 million and a voice saying, leave here and never return for any reason. Obinna shrugged and walked out of the door smiling. But he didn't know that the woman he had painted had walked out of the painting and followed him. He got home around 4 a.m. and sneaked into his room to avoid his mother noticing. Once inside his room, he quickly checked his message to be sure the 20 million was there. I am rich, Obinna danced happily. He couldn't sleep due to excitement. He just laid of his bed, calculating and thinking about how he will use the money, when he felt someone moving in his room. Obinna felt the strangest chills he has ever felt in his life and quickly rushed to put his light on. But saw nothing. He then changed his cloth and decided to sleep a little and wait for sunset. But immediately he shut his eyes, he felt a hand on his neck. Obinna jumped out of his bed, shouting. That was when he saw the figure, and it was the painting he had just finished for the wealthy man. The figure stretched her hand and held his throat and started squeezing. She then leaned forward towards him and whispered, start painting me now. Obinna refused, but when she almost squeezed life out of him, He quickly picked his painting brush and started painting the figure all over his wall, crying. His mother heard the noise and started knocking on his door, but Obinna couldn't even open his door, because the moment he stops painting, the figure will hold his throat and squeeze it so hard. His mother called his siblings to forcefully open his door. "I think something is wrong with Obinna, open the door now," his mother shouted. When they forcefully opened the door, they saw that Obinna had drawn a strange-looking woman all over his wall, crying. His mother started crying and calling on God. She tried to stop him, but Obinna pushed her away and kept drawing. She called their neighbors who came and put Obinna down. It was when they were holding him that they noticed someone was actually in the room with them and trying to kill him. "Take him out of that room, whatever that is in there is very powerful," a neighbor suggested. They carried Obinna outside, but immediately he came outside, he fell unconscious and looked dead. His mother started wailing and telling everybody to help him. A neighbor brought his car and they rushed him to the hospital. When they got there, the doctors checked his vitals and everything was okay, yet he couldn't wake up. His mother was crying and screaming, but his sister was talking to him and telling him to come back to them. He then opened his eyes and whispered to his sister saying, "Take me back to my room." His sister told their mother what he said and they quickly rushed him home. Immediately they stepped into his room, he got up and started painting on his wall again. He will be painting and crying, as if someone was flogging him. His mother started praying, while his sister was looking through his things, to know what she can find. She took his phone and started going through it. Obinna doesn't password his phone, he always teased that someone who doesn't have money has nothing to hide. The last message his sister Sarah saw on his phone was an alert of 20 million. She showed her mother the alert. They also saw that he has been talking to Uncle Peter and this made them even more scared. His mother knelt down and started praying while speaking to him, begging him to tell them what happened. After a while, he came back to his sense and was able to tell them what happened to him. "Go to Lagoon Estate, the first house by the right, that is where the man is staying." He was about to speak further when the invincible figure clutched his neck and he passed out. He woke up almost immediately and started painting again, crying. Sarah left home and went to her boyfriend. She explained everything that was happening to her brother to him and convinced him to escort her to the address Obinna had described for them. When they got there, they saw that there was a ceremony taking place. So they both entered inside the compound since the gate to the wealthy man's house was widely open. They both entered and started sneaking around the house. They found out that the wealthy man was celebrating good health and sending off his only son who was relocating permanently abroad. When they snooped around, they heard their domestic staff gossiping about how the wealthy man's only son was painting non-stop like a mad person for almost 2 years. "And to think that our boss have killed a lot of people to save his son and he was still insane, until he found that artist," one of the wealthy man's cleaner gossiped. The driver lowered his voice a little and said, "They gave the artist what was happening to Small Boss. Small Boss is Fred, the wealthy man's only son. I passed by the artist's house the day he left here, because Boss told me to go and check, and I saw his people running around. He was exhibiting the same signs Mr. Fred was showing when he was inside his locked room." The wealthy man's driver, who had become very drunk, started telling Sarah and her boyfriend what was going on. "You see, what happened was that Fred forces himself on young women, and one of the women whose daughter he took advantage of laid a curse on him after he almost killed her child. So my boss came home one day and saw Fred going mad and tearing everything down. Being his only heir, he tried everything to save him. In his quest for solution, he met a woman who told him that the only way to save his son was to behead the person who laid the curse on him. So my boss sent some boys to bring the woman to him. The woman, who was still hurt about what they did to her child, laid more curses on Fred as his father was killing her. Immediately he killed the woman. Fred started painting the same woman all over the wall, crying. And anytime Fred wanted to stop painting her, she would want to suffocate and squeeze life out of him. This made my boss even more sad. He had brought his son home from abroad to teach him his business, so that he will take over from him, but for 2 years, Fred has been inside his room, painting non-stop. So when my boss made inquiries on how to stop it and save his son, so many of his friends took him to places, but none of their advice worked. Until he met Uncle Peter. They met abroad when they attended a conference as company owners. When he told Peter his problems, Peter took him to a place where they told him to find an artist who could draw the same woman her son has been drawing. All the artists he found could not draw the image well, so they all died while Fred's condition persisted, until that last artist came into the picture. So my boss transferred his son's curse to the artist, and his son will be leaving the country in 2 days' time. And if he leaves, that artist will remain that way for life while Fred will be free forever. The wealthy man's driver was almost falling asleep by the time he was done telling them the story. I also heard that if Fred sees that painting of that woman again, he might be sick again, so my boss is right for trying to send him away. The driver started snoring immediately. Being an elderly man, little drink makes him to lose his senses faster. Sarah and Frank already knew what to do. We need to convince Obinna to draw the woman on a drawing paper as fast as possible, they said and quickly left. But when they got home, they didn't see Obinna or their mother. Sarah then checked her phone and saw so many missed calls from her mother. From the message in her phone, her mother was calling her earlier to tell her that they were going to their village to seek solution. Sarah started crying. If we don't get Obinna to draw the woman within today and tomorrow, Fred will leave the country and Obinna will never recover. She dialed her mother's phone number, but it was not even connecting. She called her younger brother that traveled with their mother. Sarah, we are almost at the village. Papa Favor drove us home, ND said on the phone, sounding hopeless. Papa Favor was their closet neighbor. Tell Mama to start coming back with Obinna now. I know how to make him well again, Sarah shouted on the phone, crying. But their mother, who didn't believe the explanations Sarah gave, insisted on seeing the person they had come to the village to see. And since they left home, Obinna has been unconscious and looking like a dead person. Mama, you have to start coming back immediately. Obinna needs to wake up in his room to be able to draw this image again, Sarah said anxiously. We will start coming home first thing tomorrow morning. It is too late to start coming back now, their mother said, crying. The evil man that did this to Obinna, his son will be traveling back next tomorrow, and if we miss him, then it is over, Sarah replied, crying too. When Mama Obinna arrived at the home of the prophetess she was going to meet, the prophetess screamed in fear and said, "Take him back to his room now, he is almost dead. You are not even supposed to take him out of the room at all. Follow what your daughter is saying," the prophetess said in a hurry, and they left to the city again that same night. They arrived by 3 a.m. and by then, Obinna was getting cold. They quickly put him back in his room, but he didn't come alive. His mother started weeping and begging God for mercy. Everyone in their compound joined in praying for him. He sneezed and got himself and started asking what happened. Just then, Sarah quickly brought the paper she had bought earlier and shouted, "Paint her here again, paint her please." Obinna started convulsing as the woman started squeezing his neck again. He rushed and started painting her on his wall too, but Sarah kept following him around with the drawing paper she was holding. After a while, Obinna grabbed the paper and started painting the woman on it. But surprisingly, he passed out. Everyone started praying and calling his name to wake up and continue. After a while, Obinna got up and was feeling so weak. He tried to paint but was so weak. They all encouraged him until he finished. But he finished almost 24 hours later, which was the day Fred was leaving the country. Sarah and Frank changed to avoid being recognized, and ran to the wealthy man's house, but they could not even be allowed anywhere near the place without a proof that they have an appointment with the man. They were only able to get into the compound the other day, because they were celebrating and the gate was open for everyone. I don't know the face of the man's son, so how do we even know who to show the picture to? We don't even know the time for his flight, Frank said, sounding disappointed. They sat down beside the main road, looking at every car, hoping to see anything that will indicate or direct them well. After 6 hours of waiting, Frank was already sleeping when Sarah tapped him and whispered, "Is this not that drunk driver?" They both recognized the wealthy man's driver and ordered a cab to follow them. But instead of the driver to go towards the airport, he took another route. The driver went to the wealthy man's company to pick him and Sarah's uncle, Uncle Peter. They all joined the driver in the car. They were all going to bid Fred goodbye at the airport. Sarah and Frank noticed that it was getting late and the cab driver driving them around kept telling them their money was increasing. When they got to the airport, everyone came down and was going into the airport. That should be Fred, Sarah said while pointing at the young man holding the hand of the wealthy man. There was another young man with them, but he was talking with Uncle Peter, so Frank and Sarah felt he can't be Fred. Sarah, with the painting in her hands, knowingly collided with the younger man the wealthy man was holding and talking with. "Hello, Fred," Sarah said while opening the painting for the young man to see. But that was not Fred but Fred's best friend. The young man walking with Uncle Peter was Fred. So the wealthy man instantly stretched his hands and tore the painting in shred. Sarah cried and knelt on the ground. But what the wealthy man was yet to find out was that was just one of the paintings, because Sarah made sure Obinna drew two to avoid mistakes. So as they were focusing on Sarah, Frank tapped the real Fred and showed him the image. It was his whimper and scream that drew the wealthy man's attention to him. The woman in the painting instantly left Obinna and was squeezing Fred's neck. The wealthy man knelt on the ground, weeping and calling on security to hold Sarah and Frank. But it was too late as Sarah and Frank immediately escaped and joined their cab that was waiting for them. By the time Sarah got to their house, her family were all packed up and ready to move. Obinna was so scared that Uncle Peter, who knew where they were living, might send people to kidnap him. The wealthy man, who was so heartbroken, returned with his son who had torn all his cloth and was screaming at the airport. Obinna insisted on sending the money back, and his family agreed. It is better we are poor but happy and safe, than rich but sad. Whenever someone is overpaying you for any service or job, always insist on collecting the actual price or do not collect the money at all, especially when the money is too much. Always know that when it is too easy, it is always too risky.
Thanks for watching. Please subscribe.